Thomas Jonathan Jackson was born on January 21st, 1824. He was born in Clarksburg, West Virginia. In 1842, Jackson enrolled at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He was older than many of the other students, so he initially struggled with the curriculum. However, he worked hard and eventually became successful, graduating in 1846. Jackson left West Point just as the Mexican War was starting, and he was sent to Mexico as a lieutenant with the 1st U.S. Artillery. He quickly earned a reputation for toughness and bravery, and by the war's end in 1848, he held the rank of brevet major. Jackson continued his military service until he accepted a professorship at the Virginia Military Institute in 1851. Jackson spent 10 years teaching as a professor of artillery tactics and natural philosophy. After his home state of Virginia seceded from the Union in 1861, Jackson joined the Confederate Army and quickly forged his reputation for fearlessness and tenacity. Jackson served only briefly as a colonel before receiving his promotion to brigadier general under General Joseph E. Johnson. Jackson earned his nickname at the Battle of Bull Run in July 1861 when he rushed his troops forward to close a gap in the line against a determined Union attack. Upon observing Jackson, one of his fellow generals repeatedly said, "Look, men, there is Jackson standing like a stone wall," a comment that spawned Jackson's nickname. Jackson was commissioned a major general in October 1861. In the spring of 1862, Jackson became in control of the Shenandoah Valley campaign, establishing himself as a strong, independent commander. The Confederate Army's high command had charged him with the task of defending western Virginia from an invasion by Union troops. With an army of 18,000 troops, Jackson repeatedly beat superior Union forces of more than 60,000 men. Jackson's army moved so quickly during the campaign they called themselves foot cavalry. President Abraham Lincoln had split the Union up into 3 parts, and Jackson used his mobility to attack and confuse the divided forces over the course of the campaign. He won several key victories over armies of larger size, but the campaign's end in June. He had earned the admiration of Union generals and become the South's first great war hero. Jackson had prevented the Northerners from taking the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, and had done so in the face of unfavorable odds. Jackson joined Lee's army in June 1862, and Lee was determined to keep him in the middle of the fighting in Virginia. From August 1862 until May of 1863, Jackson and his troop played key roles at the Second Battle of Bull Run, the Battle of Antietam, the Battle of Fredericksburg, and the Battle of Chancellorsville. By October 1862, Jackson was a lieutenant general and led a significant position of Lee's army. His widely publicized exploits had elevated him to legendary status among the Southern soldiers and citizens alike. Jackson's bravery and success inspired devotion from his soldiers, but to his officers. He was known as overly secretive and difficult to please. He frequently punished his officers for relatively minor violations of military discipline and rarely discussed his plans with them. Rather, they were expected to obey his orders without question. Lee and Jackson's most famous victory took place near Crossroads at the Battle of Chancellorsville in Virginia of May 1863. Facing a numerically superior Union force of 130,000 men to 60,000 of their own, Lee and Jackson created and executed a plan to beat the army of Union General Joseph Hooker. Historians called the Battle of Lee's finest moments as a Confederate general, and his success owed much to Jackson's participation. On May 2nd, Jackson stealthily and quickly took 28,000 troops on approximately 15-mile hike, which forced Hooker's exploit flank, while Lee engaged in a diversionary attack on his front. Jackson's attack in the Union rear inflicted massive casualties on the superior force, and Hooker was forced to withdraw only days later. But victory was not without cost. Jackson's brutal attack ended at sunset. He took some men into the forest to scout ahead. A North Carolina regiment mistook him for an enemy cavalry and opened fire, severely wounding Jackson. He was taken from the field, and General J.E.B. Stuart took over his command. Doctors determined that a bullet had shattered the bone just below his shoulder, and they quickly amputated Jackson's left arm. He was transferred to a field hospital at a nearby plantation to recover. G dispatching a letter writing, "Could I have directed events, I would have chosen for the good of this country to be disabled in your stead." Jackson initially appeared to be healing, but died of pneumonia on May 10, 1863, at the age of 39. Southerners mourned at the death of their war hero while Lee faced fighting in the war without a highly valued general and comrade. Jackson was buried in Lexington, Virginia.